portion is the chat. Once we get towards the end, we can sort of open the mics as needed. But thanks again for being here. So my name is Chris Cooley. I'm a local entrepreneur. I am a supporter, proud supporter of Rock Growth and have been for many years. I've been honored and blessed to have worked with and become friends with Richard Glazer early on to launch Rock Growth Coffee, which many of you have participated in the past. And so here we are in an online world doing things a little bit differently, where we've blended the Candids, which were more of an interview style format, with Rock Growth Coffee, which was a lightning round presentation style event. And so, you know, this is where we are. We're still living in Zoom land, and excited to continue the dialogues with Rochester-based entrepreneurs and organizations who are really making an impact socially and financially and economically in our community. So with that, welcome, thank you for being here. And Richard, I'm gonna send it over to you, and you can talk a little bit about Rock Growth and kick things off, man.
Hi, welcome everyone. It's still an altered state, seeing all these friends in little tiles on the screen. And thank you for hanging in there through our virtual phase. We've already begun discussions around what in-person or a hybrid of an in-person virtual event may look like as things continue to improve, as people get vaccinated. Nearly 7 years ago, we started Rock Growth, and it's evolved to the point where I think our perspective and mindset is different. We were initially focused on typically technology entrepreneurs, but have widened the catchment significantly. So I am truly honored to be in the virtual presence of Jaime Saunders and Amy Bach, because they are critical contributors moving Rochester forward and achieving one of our missions, which is empowering the new Rochester. And we do highlight our community's great entrepreneurs and innovators. We have two today. I also see many in the audience. We also like to make creative collisions. Obviously, that's easier to do in person and at the coffee shop or wherever. But maybe in the chat, you guys can converse or do whatever, and we'll get to know each other. We're all neighbors. And then, in addition, this is one that I leave at the end, but simply because it's the anchor. Everything we do is informed by promoting great equality of race, class, gender, and age. And I think this period of the pandemic has revealed that that is a critical element to strive for. So welcome, Jaime and Amy. How are you? Is everyone's technology working out all right? Cool. All right. You're ready to go. I will tell you, somewhere in the middle, we're going to break, and we have several PSAs, public service announcements, for a few minutes, and then that's where we'll resume and continue with some Q&A from the audience. Please submit that in the Q&A feature, and I'll try to do my best to follow up with your questions. And excuse me if I miss it, but I'll do the best I can. So, Jaime and Amy, you guys are fairly well-known names in the community, I've discovered, but would you give us a little bit about your art? I love it, calling it the origin story, like your personal background, your connection to Rochester. And I'm seeing Jaime first. So Jaime, I know you grew up here, right? Tell us about it.
I did. So first, let me just say thank you, Richard and Chris and Tom and the whole crew here. The new Rochester and Rock Growth, this is just fantastic. So it's great to see all these friends. I have a little bit of background. Can you guys hear me okay? It's a bit of an echo. And I must say, I am excited to hear from Amy Bach. So she is iconic, and I'm excited and is doing really incredible work here. I love this question, Richard. The origin story does make me think of superheroes and comic books. And I was saying to my husband last night, they're going to ask my origin story. And he goes, origin story, right? What does that mean? But we all are shaped by our experiences and our life journey. And I will just say through and through, I love this community. I'm born and raised here. In Brighton, that's my alma mater. I am passionate about community. And I am passionate about how to impact the world. And I think many of us have that calling. And particularly through COVID, I think many of us have been in touch with our humanity and life purpose in ways that you couldn't have predicted. And when we think about how we want to change the world, what is the impact that we leave? What is the purpose? That has been my driving thread. I am passionate about business. Grew up in an entrepreneurial, family-owned business environment. Customers were always at the center. The power of a job as a social solution and part of our fabric. And yet business can only solve so much. There's always going to be a percentage of the population for bad luck, for circumstance, for inabilities, for challenges that are before them. There is always going to be 10% of the population that needs help. And truthfully, through COVID, that has been even exacerbated to higher levels. So my passion, born and raised here, has always been, how do you take a business concept, entrepreneurial spirit, business principles for social good? And that combination has been my education. That's been where I've been employed. From the hunger, poverty reduction was my start at FoodLink and also in youth services, to running our domestic violence agency, which is where I fell in love with Amy Bach's work around the criminal justice system, and now at the United Way. For me, it's this trifecta of the private sector, the nonprofit sector, and the public sector is how we can make a thriving region. And that is what fuels me. So my origin is in all three, and my education and my passion. And really, I just love this community to my core. And I'm filled with optimism about where we're going next.
Pretty ambitious. All right, we'll get into that more in a little bit. So Amy, you're from my home borough. So originally as well. So you're a transplant, not unlike me. So you're on mute, I believe. Do we have Tom? I don't think it's.
I am meeting now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for unmuting me. Okay, and I was just gasping and saying, how do I go after that, Jaime Saunders? So yeah, it's such an honor to be here. I really echo everything Jaime says about this place, especially this place as a locus to do entrepreneurial work. There just isn't a better one. And thank you everybody for having me here. And many people here may not know Measures for Justice, or may not know me, because I am a transplant. I came here now 15 years ago. I had this, my husband was being interviewed for a job. We were living in Boston. And I'll tell you the moment I fell in love with Rochester. We went to the public market. Okay, we were visiting. We went to and I was like, oh, I'll try this apple. It's called a Honeycrisp. And I remember I took a bite out of it and I was like, this is the best apple I have ever had in my life. It was like an Edenic moment. And I was like, I could live here. And also the public market was just so cool. And I people say Seattle's is amazing. I'm like, this is as good as Seattle. This is better than Seattle. So yeah, so I really didn't blink much. And we moved here. And when we moved here, it was right around the time that I was writing a book. And the book was called Ordinary Injustice: How America Holds Court. And it was about communities in America that turn a blind eye to an enormous problem. And there's a domestic violence story actually in the book about this prosecutor in Mississippi who has no idea he hasn't prosecuted a domestic violence case in 21 years. And basically, I went and I was in Mississippi for a long time, and I tried to figure out why he wasn't prosecuting domestic violence cases. And it turned out that the police was actually doing a sort of a sub adequate job of investigating. And when I went to the prosecutor and I said, do you realize it's been 21 years since you prosecuted a domestic violence case? The prosecutor said, I had no idea. Has it been that long? Has it been that long? And I think about that today, and I'm so like heartened by that story in a sense, because now we do have a way to see domestic violence cases and how they are prosecuted. And I'm excited to tell you a little bit later about what we're bringing to Rochester, but we did a pilot of a tool that is in California now. And I was just talking to one of the prosecutors yesterday, and he said, we just found out that 2 of the agencies, we don't prosecute any of their domestic violence cases. And I was like, that's just like the story in my book. That's just like the origin story. So yeah, so that's my origin story of how I got to this work. I wrote that book, and the conclusion of the book says, basically, we have to figure out a way to measure and compare counties, because that's where justice happens. In America, we measure everything, right? If I asked you where the good schools are here, you could tell me. If I asked you, where the good hospitals are, you could tell me, or how the water is. You can get a pamphlet at the library about the water supply, but nobody could really tell you how the justice system works here beyond the front page stories. And so what Measures for Justice does is we measure not just one part of the system, but the whole justice system, county by county. That's it.
Cool. So Amy, you're very modest. You're quite an accomplished journalist. And I must admit, I'm only a third of the way through the book, and it's fantastic. And I can see why it achieves recognition, particularly how you lay out the history and the causes and the connection between the criminal justice system and the indigent, impoverished population. But how does someone who is attended law school, was going down a path of journalism, tell us about this that book? When did you discover you have DNA to be a social entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh, this is actually a crazy story. So the book comes out, and I'm sitting at my desk, and the conclusion of the book says, and the conclusion of the book, a lot of people didn't like it. Like, a lot of people said, I love the book, but I didn't like the conclusion. It just didn't seem to match. The conclusion of the book says, we have to find a way to measure court so we can see what is happening. You can't change what you can't see. I mean, think about what's going on in Rochester right now, right? I mean, people all over are saying there are big problems with the criminal justice system, and not just Rochester, but nationally. But in all across the country and in Rochester, we need to find a way to move beyond recognition and slogans towards concrete solutions. So the book basically laid that conclusion out and named some things that should be measured. And I'm sitting at my desk, and I get this call. And I remember almost not picking up the call because it said, it didn't have a name on it. And this woman said, look, I represent an anonymous donor, and I can't tell you who it is, and you'll never know who it is, but really liked what you're saying about needing a way to measure and compare counties. And would you consider writing a proposal? And I hadn't really thought until that moment about actualizing it. I was hoping someone else would pick it up and do it. But I wrote a proposal, and this person, who I still don't know, gave me $100,000 to start an organization. And I didn't know what to do with the $100,000. I was like, do I start a trust? Do I start a nonprofit? And so I left it like on my shelf for a couple months. And then I finally figured out that I should form a nonprofit, and did so. And the first thing that we did, I put together a board of people who I thought might know how to measure justice, because I didn't. And they came to Rochester, and we sat around a table, and I said, how would you measure justice? Would you measure length of how long a case is? Would you measure racial injustice? Would you measure what kinds of cases aren't going to court. And they came up with a list of draft measures. There were 72 of them back then. And we took that draft of 72 measures and we said, okay, now we need to find a place. And one of the people who helped design the measures was the prosecutor in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he said, come to Milwaukee. So we went to Milwaukee and we found a database, a state court database, so that we could get not just that one county, but all of the counties in the state. And we got 72 counties, and we saw that we could break everything down by race and sex and age. And we ended up getting most of our measures, which are now the 32 measures that exist today. And after that, we added 5 states. Now we have 20 states, and then we were off and running.
Cool. Let me shift to Amy for a moment and discuss United Way. And my first encounter with the United Way was when I entered the workforce after graduate school, and my large company at the time had a campaign for the United Way. And I often associate United Way with position, corporate, hierarchical structure. I think that might have a lot to do with the history. So perhaps you want to talk about how you, because you had been in the nonprofit world for a bit before you went to the United Way. Bring us into your relationship, why you chose to do it, and what the United Way is about at this point.
Yeah, first of all, I'm just so enjoying learning, and there's so much connection between Amy's work and the work of the complexity of social challenges. And that is what's been the driving force for me. Nothing happens in isolation. It's like that hydraulic displacement. You fix something in one area, press it down, and it pops up somewhere else. So looking at our community and the challenges that we face, and truthfully, the opportunities that we have before us, you need to do it in a holistic way. So from United Way, we've been at this for 103 years. So, some of the challenges I get pushed back is that there's a misunderstanding that we are just like PayPal, take money in and we give money out. That is not our model. We are action-oriented doers, conveners, collaborators. You saw that in full display during COVID, but we've been doing that behind the scenes for decades. And what I think that part of that role is that connective tissue, to recognize that if you have a new child and a parent who needs home visitation, that impacts early childhood education, which impacts their reading, which impacts their graduation rates, which impacts potential workforce and poverty, and then of course, older adult. It is all connected in terms of how we address and provide these opportunities for everyone. I am driven by providing and how can we remove barriers so that everyone has the opportunity to thrive. And so when Amy raises the conversation around, if you can't manage what you don't measure, right? You don't know what's there. You're putting a spotlight. The fact that there wasn't a domestic violence prosecution in 20 years is an abomination. I mean, it's 1 in 3 women, it's 1 in 4 men. Domestic violence is pervasive. They are working with you, they are your neighbors, they're your family members. So just take that one social challenge and think about, without understanding that prosecution and well-intended individuals in law enforcement missed that. That's the beauty of what Amy is bringing to the table, to have data so that you can have actions and change. United Way does that in other ways. We monitor, we measure, we are constantly tinkering and reinventing as social entrepreneurs. How do we tackle these incredibly complex, dynamic social challenges? And I must say, COVID has accelerated and put a spotlight on challenges and disparities that have been long entrenched. Amy mentioned them. And I love this community. We have such an amazing community. We have amazing assets. We have entrepreneurs and investment and more patents per capita and 19 amazing colleges and universities. We are dripping with innovation. How is it that we are also #1 in childhood poverty? How is it that we have domestic violence rates tripled in New York State? How is it that we have one of the most segregated school borders in the nation? That is part of that cognitive dissonance that is what we have to reconcile, because a strong, vibrant region, this new Rochester, I love that phrase, Richard, that new Rochester where we can be moving forward in this moment is to leverage the best out of the social entrepreneurship, private and nonprofit and public sector. That's that trifecta that I speak to. So United Way, for me, we have the honor of being in the middle of many of those tables, of convening, of being that neutral convener to bring and have these really challenging conversations. That's our role. And they are uncomfortable, and they are difficult, and they are thorny. One of the critiques is, you've been at it for a century, but poverty's worse. I'm not the one who can solve that. It's collective. So how do we really look at these deeply entrenched problems? Data is a core element that's actionable, and that we're able to look at the full picture so that we can have a path forward. There's a lot of exciting conversations happening, changes that are possible that were not possible even 2 years ago. I think COVID has accelerated a lot of the learning and a lot of the opportunity if we're able to seize it at this moment.
Cool. What I think I have a criterion that I might apply to all the presenters on these calls, that ultimately people are positivists or optimists, in that they don't run away from these problems or deny them. Or so I appreciate the fact that both of you have identified issues and you're trying to address them and move the needle in a positive direction. So I want to touch upon, first of all, Jaime, by the way, how large is your organization at the moment, the United Way? How many staff?
Yeah, United Way, we provide support for 6 county footprint. We have 100 staff, 25 of which are supporting community initiative work. So from the poverty initiative to our systems integration project, and then really it's a small, mighty team. So people think we're much, much larger. But through that, going back to, we are about collective giving. So it's the dollar donor to the $1,000 a week donor, all gets pooled for collective action and work. This is one of the hardest jobs, I was told, and I believe it. We raise it every year and we give it out every year. So we work in a very dynamic, unknown time with incredible professionals who are so passionate. We're in 800 companies, 1,200 if you count the region, but it's dollar for dollar that we do that collective giving to support a network of human service providers and our response. But we are small, highly efficient, highly rated. So just taking that opportunity to dispel and debunk other myths that we are one of the most highly rated, efficient organizations for the dollar of investment.
So, and briefly, how much were you able to contribute to the community financially?
Yeah, last year was 35 million, all up, all in, and that excludes the best call of my life, Amy, which was last year. We also received that call from an anonymous donor that we have yet to allocate from MacKenzie Scott, which was a wonderful affirmation of the work happening in Rochester. Unsolicited $20 million from MacKenzie Scott, who picked out of 6,000 nonprofits. They called and said, we know your work, we see you. They knew everything about us, and they gave us this amazing gift to the community. More to come, because that's not our dollars, that's community dollars. So more to come on how that will be leveraged at this transformative moment.
Yeah, again, so many folks around here have a tendency to self-flagellate. And I think that's a tremendous external validation of the work you're doing in your team. So that's a very exciting. And for those who aren't familiar, I mean, it hit the news back half a year ago, I think, with COVID.
Yeah. December, yeah. But I must say to Amy, you're doing this great work, and so resources came to you. And then it's like, that's that entrepreneurial spirit too. You knew there was something here, but what could that be? And I just related to your story so much. I didn't know that part of your story. And that same with MacKenzie Scott. It's this trust-based philanthropy, finding the ideas and action that are working and then investing in it is just truly an awesome responsibility and opportunity.
Yeah, so Amy, tell us a bit about the structure of your organization, and that might even lead to you addressing some of the work you might be doing locally, because when we first met, most of your staff is Rochester-based. The work you were doing in other states, if I recall correctly.
That's right. First of all, Jaime, I mean, you keep on saying all of these things. We are literally two sides of a coin. And I didn't really realize that, because we consider ourselves, our superpower is that we're neutral. that we don't tell communities, you're the most racist county in Pennsylvania. Instead, what we say is you have the largest racial disparity, and that's why I think we get so many people to give us their data and that normally wouldn't. And the fact that MacKenzie Scott like reached out to you and gave you that money, that is enormous validation. I mean, do you know how many nonprofits would like to be in that position? So kudos to you. That is huge. I mean, and I really look forward to hearing all the good that's going to come out of that. That's amazing. Now, wait, Richard, what was the question?
No, so how many, when I visited you're right across, you're right across the street from the School of the Arts in one of the,
Yeah.
part of the original U of R campus, that building.
Yeah, so we do. We have 43 people. We're growing fast. We're hiring 13 people this year. 43 people right in this beautiful building. And it's almost all Rochester people. There are a couple of people who were hired early or outliers, but we really find that the tech team here especially is outstanding. Our tech team, they could work anywhere. But what makes them so great is that they've really developed relationships with each other. It's a very cohesive team, and they're thrilled to be doing this work because it's so interesting and it's so important. And until really right around now, we've only worked nationally. We've been working in 20 states. We work in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We work in, East Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Utah, Arizona. I mean, you name it. And it wasn't until Daniel Prude and the 9-year-old girl that we started saying, we have this amazing tool for prosecutors. Why don't we offer it to Monroe County? Why don't we see if they want it? And so what we did was we went to Sandra Dorley and we said, look, we have this tool and it's new. We're about to launch it in California. You would be the second. And the idea is that everything that you do will be transparent. And that's one thing. So you've got to agree to give us a monthly stream of your data. The second thing you've got to agree to do is work with us, because like most places, your data is probably messy or you don't collect things. And then you've got to create a community advisory board so that you are partnering with the community to create public goals against the data. And that's super key. So imagine if there were public goals about racial disparities, or letting people be diverted for certain crimes. That's what the goal was in California. And so you have to agree to do this publicly. You've got to agree to work with the community, and you've got to agree to pick new goals. And Sandra was game, and she signed a contract, and we actually got the first amount of data, I think yesterday. Andrew Branch is on the phone. I don't know if it actually did get delivered, but yeah, we're starting to clean and code that data, and we're working with her. One of our big things is data therapy, where sometimes people don't even know that they don't collect stuff, or they're collecting things and they don't put it in the right fields because they don't have anybody working with them to show it. So that's been going on, and we've been putting together a community advisory board that's going to really kick off in July. And hopefully by this time next year, you'll be able to see a policy goal that the prosecutor commits to that can be tracked every month. And there'll be a really easy way to understand what the criminal justice system does in terms of prosecution. And so that you can send it to legislators, county officials, local media. It's really about patterns, showing the patterns of how the system works, and with the idea of perhaps reducing contact with the system for people in this system, in the city.
So I'm periodically losing sound, and so excuse me if I missed something that I said. Technical issues. but I got 95%. And the other is I do not see a Q&A feature on my screen, only chat. So please, if you do have questions, see a chat. I am checking that. So one thing, Amy, I want to explore with you, your book, I believe, on your site, it says no data, no change. And it sounds like there's the overlap with Jamie. Now, data, I just sort of want to fill in those bones. Data are bones. And then how do you put around the bones? And I mean, you're two different organizations, slightly, different. But the social science around that and how the challenges one faces to alter a system and the persistence, the attributes that you may need, or you discuss your attributes or you're thinking about that so other individuals in this room might learn, and it might fortify them as they go forward, because we have a lot of significant individuals who want to contribute to the community and have a greater impact. So please. Amy, I think you're on mute, at least on my screen. But Jamie, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think your sound's going in and out, so I got some of that too. But I just wanted to say, I know Amy, you and I have so much to talk about. I love these collisions that you make happen, Richard, because I would say, even in the chat, there was some comments of, is it different or better, and how change is hard because it's viewed as like this lost sum game. And I think from COVID, 2020, not only was COVID, but of course with racial justice and economic threat, that this whole upheaval, and also this sense of, while we were away from one another, we also had that time of internal reflection, all of that coalescing at once. What I didn't love that, I think it was Kathy who said better. What is better is exactly like Sandra Dorley and the Monroe County saying, yes, Amy, let's leverage this asset that's here. The openness to new and different, and I believe with the hope of better, is what has been the change. An example of that is, as you probably are aware, there's been a moratorium on rent and mortgage. So when we go back last March, right in April, we hold it. You cannot be evicted during COVID, during a global pandemic. There's a health consequence. That has continued to be extended. It now goes through August, but there's a moratorium on rent and mortgage. That doesn't mean it goes away. It means that eventually the bills will come due. And so we are all bracing ourselves for August, because I will tell you, the public spend has decreased significantly. There is a significant delay. If you're a property owner, you know this, that there is a crescendo that's happening that we are bracing ourselves for. To try to help with that, in the fall, and you probably saw this in the cover of the DNC last week, that United Way and our systems integration team was asked to partner with the county and the city to make a one-stop shop using technology, 13 not-for-profit organizations, and going virtual, that if you are suffering, you can't pay your rent or mortgage, you call 211 Lifeline, our community partner, one call, you get referred, you have one place to go, and behind the curtain, thanks to technology, that we now have the ability to have 7 different funding streams help that individual and family. That sounds simple. I got to tell you, that would not have been possible a year ago. The will is different, technology is different, the demand is different, and we were able in 3 months to dispense $4 million in public spend. You probably saw just yesterday, New York State is just starting, and yet Monroe County, thanks to, I believe, entrepreneurship, will, and timing, and the team to come in an agnostic way, right, a neutral way to connect those dots. That to me is social innovation. That is working across silos. That is a new approach with the family, the consumer in the middle, and the helpers trying to figure out how to do this better. I relate that to what Amy talked about with the county. Imagine having these goals where we're all aligned. And that's what happened with COVID. That's what happened with eviction prevention. TURF went to the side. It was about how do we get from here to there for the best for the community. And when you have equity in the center and consumer voice in the center, customer voice, you are able, we have seen it through study and time again, all boats are lifted. That is not Pollyanna. That is documented in data and fact. So when you look at communities that do this in a holistic way, they are the ones that are more successful, and that is what we're putting forward. So we look at this opportunity to do different, not for different sake. It's better, and that's why I'm so excited, because people seem more open to new than they've ever been before.
I think that is so right on. I feel like leaders right now have been tenderized knowing that there has to be change. And it's because of the national consensus in terms of criminal justice that the system's in a crisis. And I think leaders are trying to get ahead of it and they know that there's a moment of reckoning coming to them, and they want to be a part of it. They know that they need to take action. What we have to do is show them the path for what they need to do. And I love what you said about customer voice, because that has been so crucial for us. Like we created this new tool, and it's called Commons, right? And that's the one that's in California that's coming to Rochester. And basically it's a way for people to talk to each other and to say, you know, look, we want our goal to be that we want, you know, this amount of people to be 10% of all felonies to be diverted, or no disparities, or no more fees and fines, or no more pretextual stops. And we want to see it in the data. We want to see it on a monthly basis. And what we're seeing is that we co-created the tool with the community. So they created the tool that they wanted. And we're getting so much traction on that, because people see the data, and now for the first time they can understand it, and it's public. And we're going to do it again here in Rochester, is really put the community at the center of it, because they need to feel like this tool is for them, and that this change, that they can get action and they can hold their public officials responsible. And I really think that, you know, they're right. Like, there have been problems in the criminal justice system here. So it's a matter of, can we see it? Can we change it? And can we work together over facts, real facts, not a one-off story, but a pattern. And that's, I think, where the path is. That's where we're trying to take Rochester right now with this tool.
So I just want to note, criminal justice is one of the few issues where it seems it's not as partisan. Both sides of the aisle have shown an ability to have adult conversations around the issue. And perhaps what you're pointing out is the cause. There's an awakening around its impact on the larger community. But on that note, I want to, David Paul, if you're in, I'm sorry, you know, we've imposed upon you, but we're giving you this opportunity. Dr. David Paul is a neurosurgeon, and he's in the hospital right now, but he's also a startup entrepreneur, and we featured him before. He's also a recipient of the Rock Growth Arts Grant.
Sorry, Richard, I think you broke up there.
Richard is frozen right now, so hopefully he'll be back on in just a second.
That's all right. We can take over. David, are you there? You are. Yeah. Let's. Tom, can you highlight David's video, and we'll let him do. Got like 2 minutes or so.
Perfect.
There. Oh man, I saw you in your robe. All right, there you go.
Oh, great. Hey, thanks for inviting me to come on. I'm David Paul. I'm founder of a startup called Bold and Gritty. We're a coffee-focused lifestyle brand that highlights Black coffee and Black culture. And we have this really crazy idea that, you know, if we can honor Black people's contributions to the history of coffee, and then use coffee as a vehicle to tell inspiring stories, we might be able to sort of inspire a generation of folks to go out and just really change the world. And recently, and this prompted Richard to invite me to just briefly speak with you all, is that the UPS store and Incorporated magazine, they thought that this vision was worth supporting, and selected Bold and Gritty as one of 10 semi-finalists for their Small Business Challenge out of thousands of applications. So it's really exciting to be sort of a Rochester-based startup in the running for a $25,000 award prize and national recognition for what we're doing right here in the city. And I wanted to get the word out early. Voting starts on Monday, June 7th. If you're not already familiar with our brand, I'd encourage you to go to our website, www.boldandgritty.com, sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social media. The link for voting will go out on Monday on social media and via our newsletter. We're super excited. We're looking to really draw on our local community to help sort of propel us into the final round.
Okay, I understand I'm having some technical issues. I apologize. Let's blame Spectrum. All right, so hopefully you hear me. What I think I'm going to do is we have two more PSAs that Rock Growth may send out a dedicated email to our list of 2,500 and include that link when you want to go live, David, and we can also make reference to the other two. On that note, is Christina Lopez? I've seen you chatting and I've seen your tile. Can we give Christina her moment on the screen? Spotlight. Thank you, Christina.
Thanks, Richard, for the time slot in here. I've got an event coming up that I want to highlight. I'll put the information into the chat. Having a tech degree means that, and a tech interest means that everything I look at what's the tech solution for it. What I'm focused on is developing a pipeline by casting a very wide net to find that talent early that's dedicated to the area that the tech center is in. And then everybody needs tech. So it's not just for tech people, it's for everybody to keep up with what they need to know as far as the tech related to their interest in their profession. So we have a showcase event coming up on the 18th where our current members of our different programs will be showing what they've been doing, what they're learning, and connecting with the community. This is our first showcase in Rochester. It's just a couple hours. We're gonna have food and drinks, and really this is a big giant networking event where you get to see how our tech center can be an integral part of this community. So we're pretty new here. Love Rochester. I love hearing the tech focus of a lot of what's going on. And we're here to support all of that. Don't know what else I can say about it. It's definitely something you gotta experience to be able to understand it. It's kind of like you can watch a car driving around or you can drive the car. So come on in and see what we're doing, because that's the only way you really understand it.
Thanks for your commitment to Rochester and locating your second operation here downtown, in the heart of downtown, in the Sibley building. And I appreciate the fact that you're also set up as a for-profit entity, but you're doing good. So it's social entrepreneurship through a vehicle that other than a 501c3. So welcome to the community, Christina. You've been here about a year now or less.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, and do we have Chaz? Is Chaz Bruce, has anyone seen him?
Chaz Bruce is here. How are you doing?
Oh, Chaz. So I don't think you need an introduction. I think you can describe what you're about very clearly.
What's going on? I recognize a few faces. How's everybody doing? My name is Chaz Bruce. I am a local influencer. I guess not so much local anymore. And I went from being an educator in the city school district to being a influencer, social media influencer on TikTok and Instagram with over almost 5 million followers via my content and the inspiration that comes from the content. And so what I am doing with that is figuring out and learning and how to affect my community through this. And the number one thing for me is to, teach and educate the youth on how to become entrepreneurs through their social media. What we know with the youth is that's what they love. That's what they love. And older generations, I feel like, don't understand the the real possibility of like building entrepreneurs through social media. So that's something that I'm focusing on through different events and different pieces of content. For example, a movie that I'm trying to produce that's going to tell the story of how I went from the teacher to the influencers, and then building something that affect the community. For example, the content house that I'm working on, and that's going to be building a house where we are training the youth how to become entrepreneurs through their social media, the do's and the don'ts of being an influencer, and then how that can change the trajectory and where things are going socially in the Rochester community. Another thing that's happening, and to give you an example, when everything that's happening with the mayor and running and things like that, what I do for the community is I recreate, things that's happening for a lot of people who don't watch the news, right? They'll come to my page and see the type of content that I make, and I do it in a funny way, but it's something that's really connecting community. So events like Juneteenth, last year, 4.8 million followers. That's a fact. Somebody just put it in a thing. What I was saying. Oh, so the events that I'm doing, Juneteenth is something that we did last year. We did a weekend where we did a bunch of different events from, a kickball tournament. We did a meet and greet where we brought in some influencers, as I was one of the biggest influencers in Rochester. I called on a few other influencers from out of town that came in, and we did a meetup where we did workshops with the kids and adults and businesses as well, because there's a lot of businesses trying to understand how to use this new TikTok platform, and also not even just businesses, but schools as well. Like I said, I was an educator, so I took the TikTok influence and understanding and totally changed the community and of the school. Just because the students, when you're popular on their social media platform, they are really responsive to that, and they're willing to listen to you because that's clout for them. So my goal, these days, is to really take what I have as a popular influencer and really build something for the community to change the community, and my focus is going to be on the youth, because they're the one told me about TikTok. So I want to be able to really be able to turn around and say, okay, this is what I built. I built myself up to this stage, right, as this influencer that everybody is looking at. And what do I do with that? Well, I want to change the energy of Rochester, where the youth have more say in what's happening in their community, and they're doing it via their social media. So I think the different things I'm trying to do, from events to different type of contents, from Juneteenth to my VidCon event that I'm putting together, where I want to bring in a bunch of influencers to do workshops, to do these different kind of concerts, to kind of build this community of social media entrepreneurs. And that's a big thing that I'm focused on. And thank you guys for the platform. And I love to talk to you guys a little bit more, but I don't want to take up too much time, because I can go on forever talking about social media and the power that it really has. And I think a lot of it is missed, right? When we have these different kind of conversations, we kind of miss the fact that, yes, social media is very, very, very important. And if we can tap into that with any and everything we are doing in this community, we can really make some big changes.
Thank you, Chaz. And thank you for being the catalyst behind my downloading the app, TikTok. I'm not naturally drawn to it, but what you've done is helped open my eyes to what you're calling youth culture, and approach it with a degree of respect that sometimes doesn't apply to people who are my contemporaries, and embracing
Right.
the younger generation, because they approach the world very differently. You would expect so. They grew up in with different current events and arrangements. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. And the youth, man, they know, they've seen it. I've literally seen teens, right, go from downloading TikTok to now they are these influencers making thousands and thousands of dollars and really kind of changing their life. And I want to be the catalyst here in Rochester to really start to push that, right? Because our students know, but they don't know until they see. And I'm one of the biggest influencers in Rochester on TikTok. And every time I go anywhere, they're like, oh my God. And now I want to take it from just being, oh my God, to like, yo, come over here. Let me show you how it's done. Come over here. I have this program. I have this content house where they can come in. We'll train you how to do that. And all of a sudden you start seeing like, wow, the youth really have voice. We always talk about giving the youth the voice, but we don't really give them the voice if we don't understand the impact of their social media. And until we do that, we're just going to keep saying, give them a voice, right? How are we going to give them the voice?
This is a great lead into where I wanted to wrap up. Jaime and Amy, you're doing, incredible work, but around the issue of avoiding groupthink and the way and maintaining blinders, which is natural. How do you keep fresh? How do you maintain some degree of diversity in the people you're around or your information flows? So how do you remain relevant to 2021 rather than getting locked into becoming an atavistic type of organization?
I mean, we've been whacked, our issue has exploded. So I think, what we're trying to do is develop solutions so that people can really use the data. I mean, the first thing that we had to do was to create a methodology so that you could A, measure justice, and B, prove that you could compare counties and that, that the data could be used. The data wasn't too bad, that it is possible to measure justice, it is possible to compare justice systems, that each one wasn't a unique snowflake. Now we got to make sure that people are armed with the data. They've got to be armed with the data in order to, truly rally their communities to create sustainable solutions to systemic problems. And if we can do that, and I think we can, I think we'll, we can all feel like we've really contributed to the world. And I do think that Rochester's a good example of this. I'm really sorry that my dog is going crazy. There's someone at the door, so I'm going to mute myself.
This is a Zoom moment.
And I love it. It's that humane part. I think it's a really great question, Richard, because we always have to guard against the echo chamber, right? And I would say when many think that Jaime Saunders is the one that has the 36 million or the 20 from MacKenzie Scott, let me just tell you, I do not. As soon as that was announced, I got 1,500 emails of people with all of their ideas of how we should and shouldn't, who owns it, who doesn't. I think when you are responsible for a public good or a public entity, you are beholden to community, and that's a broadest sense. And so to challenge every day of where your information is coming is prudent, and that's how you stay relevant in the private sector, the public sector, and the nonprofit. I would say in my unique seat, the role that United Way plays across sectors, and that we are boots on the ground, and then of course also in philanthropy, that we get a divergent views all the time. So our challenge isn't so much different thoughts and ideas. Our job is to try to find that connection. What is the common ground? Is there unified positive intent? How do we seek that and find it and diffuse where there can be against one another? But to Amy's point, when you have data and it's irrefutable, then you can sit around and talk about it. It's not about you and me. It's really about what is being shown objectively. And that's how you can try to find common ground. So it's not so much that we need to seek out different information. I think we have a plenty. I will tell you, United Way is getting better at being at different tables and neighborhoods and different channels, not traditional channels, ones that you'll see us at more consistently. But our role is really to try to find that alignment and agreement, and that's how things move. It can't, I believe the comment of, it's that whole idea of you've seen crabs in a bucket and they're all pulling each other down, right? You've seen that adage that instead of helping each other to all get out, they pull each other down to the bottom. May that not be us. There is a plenty. There is a way for us to think broader and for us to find a way. And that is the part that we need to focus on. I would also offer that, justice is where Amy's expertise. The justice system impacts, as we talked about earlier, Richard, about poverty, which impacts violence, which impacts education. These are all entangled. It's not just up to Sandra Dorley or Amy Bach to solve the justice crisis. Even when there's a community goal, we have to be cross-sector. And I would offer that, there's a lot of feedback, that United Way, you're going to hear more about our systems integration project work. It's been happening for 3 years. It is amazing to have the health systems at the table, all the educational institutions at the table, and our human service providers to share data with the consumer in the middle. And that is what is going to be the most exciting for me going forward in 21, 22. I've dreamed about it for decades, and we're on this precipice. Timing is everything, as much as will, and as exactly what Chaz was talking about, hope. People need hope. It's not a plan, but it certainly is fuel.
Cool. We're coming up to the final few minutes, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you how our community, this sort of intangible group of people, we're going to post the link to the video and produce this as a podcast, but how we help, like for instance, Amy, you said something about 13 individuals. How could the 50 plus people that are remaining on the call be helpful to you and also the United Way? Because the United Way has to figure out how to use the $20 million. So, Amy?
Oh my gosh. I think if you're involved in the county or city politics, I think if you can just reassert your hunger and your appetite for new solutions, and Sandra Durley jumped at the chance. We're hoping to work. There's a lot of hunger from the community to get the police data. They really want that, and not in a form that it's in now, but they want it in a new form. So that you can see what's happening. They can have a seat at the table with the data. I think that's crucial. I think getting that police data, we're working to see if we can get that. So any help that you can give surround sound for that. I mean, you could always donate, but I know not everybody, I hate to be a one-note wonder on that. Yeah, we always need funding. And we're going to be hosting some public forums soon. Please come. We want to hear from you. And reach out to me. I'm Bach at measuresforjustice.org. I want to hear what you do too.
Cool. Jamie?
Will be the full one note, but dollars, donate, time, treasure needed. United Way, so support your workplace campaign, donate individually. The website is there, uwrochester.org. But truly lean into the nonprofit sector. I implore you not to start any new nonprofits. There are 5,600 501c3s in Rochester. Let us please partner, affiliate, support, really build off each other's strengths. If you reach out to a nonprofit and want to volunteer and you don't hear from them, they need you the most. So please don't give up. The sector is under-resourced, needs capital, especially investors who will do risk investments, like taking a risk on Amy Bach, that donor, thank goodness, right? But we need those who are inspired to take chances, to learn, and not prohibit failure, because that's how you get innovation. So donate, time, treasure, talent. Thanks.
Cool. So we believe in the customer, being customer centric as well. So we would enjoy everyone's feedback. info@rockgrowth.com, and it will come to the team. We're responsive. So if you have any ideas, want to volunteer in any way, we're not soliciting funding. We do this like real bootstraps, but we would welcome your feedback and opinions and help. And I also want to give a shout out to my wonderful compadres in this endeavor, my teammates, Tom Myers, Chris Cooley. I'm not sure if Zara's on. Zara's been pitching in this year, or she's been doing a gap year before she starts NYU in the fall. And we have Carrie Gilbert and Andrew Brady from Conscious Capitalism, and I hopefully did not omit someone. I apologize if I did. Did I finish?
Josh Krieger.
Oh, Josh Krieger. Oh my. All right, sorry. Thank you, Tom. You see, my team has my back. So I would be remiss to point out that June 22nd is an election date, and I think recent news has highlighted the importance of our right to vote. So whatever party you are, if you have a primary, you're eligible to vote in. I really encourage you as a community builder, as a neighbor of yours, to go out and vote and express yourself and exercise that privilege. So that's all. We're going to post this. I want to thank Jamie and Amy again, and my team, and all of you. Please vaccinate. I'm sorry if that seems political. It's not. It seems to be helping our community. And the sooner we get together and meet in person, I think the better we'll all be. So have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you soon. Stay tuned. Thank you.